Hello, and welcome to From Planning to Prosperity, the podcast where we spotlight wealth management professionals who are shaping the future of financial advice and client service. I'm your host, Stephen Palmer, and today I'm excited to feature Ray Godleski of Southeast Wealth Partners.
Thanks for having
Hi,
me on.
Ray.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. So before we dive in here with the Q&As, I'd love to ask you a little bit if you could just tell us about your background and like what kind of drew you into the wealth management space.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's see. If we go way back in time, my first experience was I left a corporate job, needed to do a 401k rollover, met an advisor, and went corporate world to business with my mom actually at the time in real estate. So that was my experience, and it was very underwhelming. And the seed was planted. Fast forward, into the future, and the light bulb moment happened, and decided to kind of get right into being a full fiduciary financial advisor right from the jump, really.
Nice. So very entrepreneurial roots.
Yes.
Love
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
That's why I do these recordings, because I love these stories. Thank you for sharing. So just to set the stage for the podcast listeners here, many people might not know exactly like what's the day-to-day for an advisor like yourself. Can you share a little bit about your role there at Southeast Wealth Partners and how it kind of connects to your overall vision for client?
Sure. Yeah, it's a very big space, and so there's a lot of quote financial advisors out there, right? And then, so there's different testing you need to pass to be able to be called that. And so while there's a lot of similarities from one advisor to another, there's a lot of differences too. From how do you market yourself? What are your niches? What are your strengths? Are you a
Right.
hands-on person or a hands-off person? For me, Southeast Wealth Partners, that's the DBA that I own, which is quite common in the industry. That's all the trends that I see as far as growth goes are advisors that want to have a lot of independence. Now, I'm part of a bigger umbrella when it comes to compliance and who's doing due
Right.
diligence on all the investment choices. But it's quite nice to not have a bank or an insurance company kind of push, tell me to, push this or push that. I don't really care for that. So quite nice to be in the independent space. And as far as who do we work with, it's hard. It's funny when you look at the overall client base, there is not a common demographic, but there's a little more psychographics. Almost everybody that we work with, the jump on point is they are finally in a place where they have more money than they're used to, or more cash flow than they're used to. And maybe something as simple as 401k rollover, or it may just be they just been piling cash for a while, and so a lot of times that could be a business owner or someone has a side hustle, but that tends to be the common thread among new clients that we work with, is now they're in a spot where they got more than they're used to.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's probably how most people fall into it, I would imagine,
Mm-hmm.
except for um, a select group of people whose parents might have told them, save your money.
Right. Yeah. 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 I mean, these
That's
days inheritance is a kind of a
Yeah,
big deal too. So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, today it's probably becoming more and more common
for sure. No doubt.
because we've been saving,
Right. Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. Definitely.
So in your typical day, how do you balance like your client service work with your business growth goals?
Yeah. Having, over the last several years had some coaches that have been very helpful on putting processes in place, so that without the processes, what happens is at least for me, the way brain is wired, just you're kind of having to think through mundane stuff too much. And so putting those processes in place was very helpful. Really just prioritizing, you know, uh, existing clients, right? Making sure that the service level is there. I did hire an assistant a couple of years ago. It's been more than 2 years now. So that's been very helpful. she's not an advisor, but even there's so much work that an unlicensed person can do. So having her join the team is helpful. And even more recently, we keep growing, and our retention rate is, I would say through the roof, which is great. So now we have more of a hybrid person on the team as well. And so that been one of the ways to keep that service level there, because one of the things that we put a lot of emphasis on is response time, is being very responsive to people. I've heard in the marketplace where sometimes that's, other people that are out there with others, they're sometimes disappointed in the response time, or maybe even the response reaction, which I always kind of scratch my head on when someone asks for their money, like it's their money,
Right.
I've heard people say before, they made me feel bad. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask questions. Of course, we need to know why, but there's a fine line between making sure nothing nefarious is going on and making somebody feel bad that they want their money.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've heard a few of those type of indicators throughout my interviewing, and I think it's mostly the difference between an independent and a bigger firm.
Could be.
Yeah, the bureaucracy gets in the way of client service, I think,
Mm-hmm.
of
Right.
excellent client service.
Yeah. And one thing I'll tell you too, that we're putting more emphasis on this year especially, but it's been an ongoing thing. Fortunately, the IBD that we're a part of, they're called Osaic Wealth, get great processes in place for compliance, but also for security. And I reflect back to 3 years ago or so, people would sometimes complain like, man, I got to do too many steps, to too many clicks or too many texts. And so, but now nobody that I know really complains about it, because the truth is there needs to be those steps for security reasons. You got to really make sure. It's just like, we know our people, right? You're not a number, right? There's plenty of companies out there that spend a lot of money on their marketing, on their name. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're out there. And I just see, I'll meet with someone and I see what's going on, and I'm like thinking in the back of my head, you're just a number to them. You're not, and so, we're going to verbally verify who are we talking to, when someone needs money out of account, or if anything looks off, hey, we're going to put money into a new account. Like, what, versus there's some big custodians out there that if it's under $10,000, you can just wire money to a brand new account without a whole lot of due diligence, it seems like.
Yeah. No, it is true.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty cool picture of your world. Thanks for giving us that insight. So I'm going to just move on now. I mean, wealth management is evolving really quickly right now, and that's one of the reasons we're talking today. And advisors are obviously at the center of all these changes. So what shifts are you noticing right now, whether it be client behavior, compliance, or tech, any of those things kind of getting your attention these days?
There are. I always like kind of looking after some trends. I think principles might stay the same, right? Values stay the same, but the tactical pieces, the technology pieces, those are absolutely changing. Even some of the strategies kind of evolve. So, for us, at our core, it's always the investment mix needs to match up with where you're at and what you're trying to do, right? But the tax smart piece, we put a lot of emphasis on, how are we being tax smart for not just the short term, but also the long run.
Right.
And we certainly have an estate planning element there, as we talk more about that, as our some of the clients are getting older, and sometimes we even get referred to people's parents, right? So AI, obviously, that's a big deal. And so typically what I've seen so far is, financial services is a huge industry. So there's a lot of enterprise agreements that are happening from one entity to another. And so at Osaic, they'll kind of pick out what's the quote, the best AI note taker or things like that. And so the one that I use is, nice because it integrates with my calendar, the reminders, put it into a phone call, right into the CRM, which flows right into our investments. So things are, at times they seem disjointed, but they're actually quite integrated. It's just, for now, what I see, there's a lot of players in there. And it's a little more, I don't know how to describe this, but more kind of vertical. And I think at some point, what will happen is we'll see, maybe one entity or two entities do what three or four different companies were doing. Now, the unfortunate piece is, and this is just not our industry, it's like CPAs, for example, somebody come out of school used to do a personal return. Well, that's not necessary anymore to do just a personal return for, a W-2 employee. And same thing, I had someone about a year ago, like, they're wanting to be kind of right out of school. Yeah, I could sit in meetings and I could take some notes, and it's kind of sad, right? Because I'm like, well, I have Alex. Who's Alex? Alex is my AI note taker. They go to my meetings and
my robot.
Right. Yeah, they do a really good job, and it helps me listen better to the clients. So I don't think that means that there's going to be a huge displacement of jobs, but the traditional ways of being able to learn, at least that way, isn't the case. But I love it because from a marketing standpoint, even, like, you could almost, in any business, it doesn't have to be financial services, you could have an idea, and probably if you're using AI the right way, you could probably start off with a clean canvas and get a lot of traction in a very short amount of time versus, I would even say some people you may be so used to doing things the way you want to do them that it may even be holding you back. So, I know right. Yeah. You got to move forward. And, I love being able to kind of be creative and not just do it this way because we've always done it this way.
Yeah, that's super insightful. I mean, it's clear that you're paying attention. You talked about AI tools coming into your business process, and I think that's the way we should handle it. I get a lot of different points of view being in marketing. A lot of agencies want to sell AI processes, to clients or whatever, and I'm just like, well, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But that's not going to last very long because people are going to figure this out for themselves. It's not going to be a black box,
right?
Like things have been in the past. Stick to what you know. Client generation, for an example. So let's flip the script a little bit here. Thanks for sharing all that. We'd like to celebrate wins and make up for all the hard hours that we put in every week. So do you have a success story? Either it could be like a client facing story or one for your own practice.
Oh, definitely. I have to think of which one to pick out. I'll give you one. This has been a few years back. I don't know how many years back, but quite a few years back. It was a couple retiring. One had a pension, and the other was the saver, if you will, who was kind of a solopreneur and just done a really good job of putting money into a SEP over the years. And so when we started working, started using some projections on what their future is going to look like. So I don't remember their ages at the time, but there was definitely like a 5.5-year difference. And the younger spouse had the bulk of the money in their name, in their IRA, and the other one had the pension. Back then, there's a thing called RMDs, required minimum distributions. So the government says, hey, if we're going to give you a tax benefit on the way in, when you take that money out later, you're going to get taxed on it. So at an ordinary income rate. As a matter of fact, this is going back then, at age 70.5, we're going to tell you how much at a minimum you got to take out of these accounts. So we went over that, and I kind of showed that to the client, and the client was like, well, that's a little more than I think we'll need. So I don't know about that. And I said, well, it's like, it doesn't really matter. You're going to have to take that out unless you just like paying a 50% penalty. which back then that was the penalty. And they're like, oh no, that sucks. Like, what if I reinvest it? I'm like, you can reinvest it, but you're still going to pay an income tax. So we started to explore Roth conversions, and it's called a fill the bracket strategy. Again, this isn't for everybody, but in their situation, the idea was, why don't we start building up a tax-free account that you can get later, and also that will reduce the amount of RMDs you would have out of this traditional IRA if you didn't take action. Now, the reality is, it's both accounts are making a good amount of money, so there's still quite a bit in both. But I'm just imagining, this Roth is now about 25% of the balance of the other account. So if that amount had not been done, their RMDs would be very punitive, because as you get to retirement age, there's something called IRMA, right, which are these Medicare surcharges based upon your income on paper from the previous tax year. And so here we are. And of course, what happened is they actually moved the RMD age, so that it moved to 72 for about a minute, and now it's 73 for those folks. So 73 is the RMD age for them, and a lot of people right now. For people like me, it's 75 is the RMD age. So anyways, this is the last year for that client to not be 73. Also the last year that we're going to probably do some Roth conversions. There probably won't be much need starting next year. So, it's just a real good success story, because the other thing we were doing is we were converting every time there was market pullbacks. So it's funny, I look at the two account performances, and the Roth is like doing great, and it was doing good, but the Roth's like doing quite well, and that's the way you'd want it, because that's the tax-free account.
Right.
Every time you do well in a tax me later account, Uncle Sam's going to get his, cut of the action. So yeah, that'd be one of them. Yeah,
that's a great story.
Thanks.
Do you want to share another one? That was a really good story, actually.
Yeah, we had a business owner, in their 40s, and has always done it on their own, and they're starting to get some real good traction in their kind of new business. They're no longer, because they had a side hustle while they're getting a corporate income, and now they're really on their own. And so, and a lot of different things happening out there. So we're able to kind of really help them just get organized, right? Get them both organized, because now the spouse is going back to work, and just didn't really know. There's so much noise out there. So fortunately, we're able to kind of just right from the beginning, I was like, hey, just tell me what you want to do, what concerns you, what you really want to do. And, we'll be the architect and kind of get it into a plan. And we'll also help you prioritize, what seems more urgent than others, right? Because sometimes people in their mind, they think this is something urgent, but truthfully, if we're really being holistic and we're, going over the whole plan, sometimes there's something else that's a blind spot. And we were uncovering that, like, hey, we got to tackle this, whether that's tax related or could even be, imagine somebody in their spot with 2 kids and really not much life insurance to speak about it. Well, that's probably something we need to get going first, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so now and they got a concentrated stock position. So we're able to walk them through that. I put a lot of emphasis on liquidity. And liquidity, in my mind, the way I like to describe it is, hey, something has happened, a problem or even an opportunity has popped up. How can I get money so it's not painful?
Yeah.
Right? Because I've seen it happen all the time. People liquidate their 401k or they liquidate their IRA, and they're paying a 10% penalty and it's income. And, and sometimes they even do it when the market's down. It's just like, if we're really doing a job of planning, we're not going to have you in that position, which is not the same thing as the other people I see, which have so much cash making hardly any money for way too long a period. So that's another area where we try to really help people, and it's really about a liquidity conversation.
Cool. Those are some really good stories that kind of talks a lot about your style. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good stuff. I'm sure you have helped those folks with positive impacts, which is awesome.
I'll do
So,
one quick one if you
oh
don't
yeah,
mind.
yeah.
This will be
Go,
a short
go,
one.
go for it.
These folks, they're also fairly new clients, had a very concentrated stock position as well. They're a little unsure about that stock's future, right? Not that it's going to like go bad, but it's done so great for a while. I think it's running out of steam. And also they're charitably inclined, so they're paying out of their checking account, their bank account, on a monthly basis, a good decent amount of money. They're still working and making good income, and so we just went over a strategy for them to take the stock that they had, and the reason they would never sell it is they want to pay the tax on it, right? The capital gains tax, but they're also scared about that it could go down in value, and so we're able to propose how we could move that into something called a donor advised fund. They get a full um, deduction on the value of the stock, and then we could sell it over there. And charity doesn't; they're not going to pay anything differently, and then that helps their cash flow because now the charity they've been paying on a monthly basis. In any example, it could be a church, could be a nonprofit, right? Now that helps their cash flow because now they're not spending a grand a month, $2,000 a month, whatever they're doing towards that church or charity. So that's kind of just a cool little thing that a lot of people are unaware of.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I've heard a little bit about that lately,
Mm-hmm.
but never heard anybody talk about it in
Mm-hmm.
one of my interviews. So kudos to you, Ray.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again for sharing all that good stuff. That's kind of what this is all about, right? Getting back to the business questions. So what's working really well right now in your practice? And then what's been frustrating? Or what are you working on trying to solve?
Well, if I was to go back not too far in time, I was very frustrated because I was working somewhere where there was two partners, and I mean, I'm very thankful for the years there learning, right? But it got to the frustration part when the older person had retired, and I thought I was, had kind of quote proven myself to be, at least thought of as a partner, and that didn't happen. So, and the income at that point in time was quite the grind, and I kept talking about it, and it just, it was very frustrating time. So that was before the pandemic, but
Yeah,
that was really frustrating. So thankfully, it just kind of persevered and went on to my own and kind of spread your wings and keep grinding. But at least it was like I was the ultimate decision maker, if you will.
yeah,
And I'll always try to have other folks as from a mentorship standpoint. But so right now, as far as the struggles, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that's a major struggle other than it just seems like there's not enough time in the day,
hmm
right? So that's always something on my mind. But I do have
it's
continuity,
because you're wired like an entrepreneur.
right?
It's
Yeah,
a proven like we never
yeah,
feel like the day is over,
yeah,
like we've
yeah,
done enough.
yeah. As far as what's working, it's really just the process, right? We're financial planning at our core, but we try to make things easier for folks, which is we can actually help them execute on all these things. Not here's the plan, now you go figure out who can execute for you. No, we want to try to help folks execute in all the areas. Now
Nice.
there's certainly areas that we don't, right? I mean, we're not. I don't do home and auto policies. Those are important. We talk about it. We talk about umbrella policies, but I don't
Yeah,
write those.
yeah,
I'm not a health insurance person. I have a Medicare person. A couple of people that I think do a great job, and so make that introduction. Or if they're not Medicare age, other health insurance people. So, but yeah, really just uh, the the financial planning and the collaboration among other advisors that are here. It's quite helpful. We almost have like our kind of an informal investment committee, so we're all kind of in simpatico with what's
mm,
going on in the markets and what are some good ideas for models. What about tax efficiencies? So we're getting a lot more into, especially with our folks that are of age, if you will, 65 and older, around Social Security optimization, and then just from a tax planning perspective, we're meeting early in the year Okay, now your tax return is done for last year. Let's reflect back on that. Okay, and what's going on this year? Okay, let's think about what we should be doing, and then that way we can circle back in October or November and see where we're at and try to be a little more surgical, a little more precision. And a lot of people think, that it's about one big thing with planning. It's usually not. It's really a bunch of small decisions that you do, and you compound that year after year after year, and people would be surprised at how much more you've got to, enjoy or give away.
Right, right. That's awesome. That's well put. Never really heard the marathon put in those words. It's great. I mean, it's basic, business rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take some small wins every day or every week, and at the end of the year, they accumulate into something nice.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
Yeah.
working your goals.
Right.
Thanks for being so open. I think a lot of advisors that would listen to this podcast will learn some things. That's awesome.
I learn from other advisors. Listen to podcasts. I listen to podcasts a lot, so
Yeah,
it can be a pretty good community.
yeah, for sure. So let's look ahead a little bit. What are you working on this year within your business? Uh, are you working any goals, or are you just floating along?
Yeah, we have a goal each year of bringing on new clients. AUM goals, right? We have that retention goals, which we've like I said, we've been on a roll surpassing
Hmm.
that. So from a working standpoint, when it comes to the business owners that have quite a few employees, I would say could be 10 or more. We have a fairly new relationship where I feel comfortable just bringing another advisor on board. I think in that situation, two is better than one, and that's all that person does. And so that's kind of a new development that I'm happy that because I still my passion is really with an individual or it could be a couple. And when it comes to business owners, it tends to be the solopreneurs. Maybe they got 2, 3 people, and that's really it gets me going. But once they start becoming 5 and 10 and 20 and 50 employees, then I'm gonna loop a bunch of other people in, and I do have a really good network for that. But um, my area, if you will, is really going to be on the individual or solopreneur side.
Nice, nice. That's a interesting way to expand. I mean, hopefully it flows well.
One other thing I'll say is, at some point we're looking for probably someone like a junior, or some type of equity partner. I don't see me giving up the control reins, right, anytime soon, right? But that's something it's on the mind. In the meantime, we have things in place, so I walk out there and get hit by the Budweiser truck. They'll be okay. We got a continuity agreement here
Yep.
in house with
Cool.
some super quality folks, but that's probably on my radar. Is just someone with less experience on board at some point in the near future.
Yeah, that's good. That's all good. I like that reference to the bus. I use that all the time. I'm from Chicago, so it's a real thing.
Right?
People get hit on the train platform all the time.
Yikes. Mm.
Well, cool. We kind of talked about a lot, your challenges, which are really minimal at the moment. What are you working on for your marketing right now? Like, what's your main funnel building tool that you're using? Is it?
Yeah, that's an area where a little bit of a shotgun at times approach. Seeing what sticks. That is, going back to what you asked earlier. That's probably an area I could definitely do better at, which is measure the stuff sooner. Like, hey, we're doing this, and measure it more frequently. Unfortunately, I think what happens is we get busy, and it's months down the road before we really paying attention as a business owner
Yeah.
and measuring it. So we are doing some things from a marketing standpoint, and there's some things that I'm like, wow, that doesn't. They sold me a bill of goods. You're going to get this many qualified leads, you know. And it's like, it's not really. It doesn't really work like that.
No.
So I don't want to say who that company is, but I'm pretty sure I'm not renewing that contract.
Right.
You know, so that'll kind of wither away. You know, I have my own podcast, and so last year I started it, released 2 a month without any kind of coaching. You know,
Yeah.
and now, you know, I met with a podcast coach at the end of last year. And so they were very helpful. You know, hey, you should be doing them weekly. You don't have to do them as long if you don't want to. You should actually do 2 a week, which is a pretty heavy lift. I'm not doing that right now, but I am getting 1 a week out there. And, you know, so there's things that can flow from that. Yesterday, I met with a great couple. Kind of sad. They were 70 years old, been married, I think, 30 something years, and they're getting divorced. But he found me on LinkedIn. So, you know,
It's
I was like,
working.
that's cool. Yeah, I was like, that's pretty cool. You know,
It is cool.
Yeah, just looking for a CFP in the area, and you know, it was actually for his soon-to-be ex-wife. You know, and so it went great. So, you know, kind of have the basics covered, but that's definitely something on the mind is marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like my website, it's so easy to go with, you know, who the IBD or Osaic in this case, you know, who they will use. We don't have to go with that, but it's, you know, compliance is a very big deal in this industry. And
Sure.
it used to be so frustrating for people that you wouldn't even try to market.
Right.
That's clearly has changed the last few years. I think it still depends on where you're at. So some outfits are better at letting you be creative, and other outfits are just risk averse, and they're not going to let you really build your own brand.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe in the future it might be something I look at. I just don't think it's high on the list. Like, oh, we should do a website refresh. I don't know if that's something. I feel like our website has a lot of great free tools out there.
Yeah.
But it could be something maybe make it look, you know, slightly different. But
Yeah. You could improve its look. I mean, at the end of the day, for a lot of consultants and, you know, those type of people, I mean, a website is really just a brochure, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
People don't buy from your website; they buy from people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice because it's a representation of you, so you want to look nice,
right?
And, you know, have some free value built into it,
Yeah.
which it sounds like you do. Well, that's cool. At least you're trying some marketing. I mean, it's okay to test and fail, because that's what marketing is all about at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. And you do never know, right? You sign up for any marketing program and whatever, you get promises, but if you get 2 or 3 nice new clients out of it, I mean, and it didn't cost a boatload of money, it's usually satisfactory when you're on a retainer situation with your clients.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That we always run the numbers and see, you know, what do we need to get for this to make sense, right? And I will say our industry is different than if you're a realtor. If you're a realtor, you know, you gotta close, and that person you just worked with is probably not moving for a while. So in our line of work, if we're, you know, kind of working on an annual basis, whether that's a fee for a plan or fee of the assets, something like that, you know, it can be tremendous, right? When you get a new client that kind of fits your mold, and we're bringing value to them, and they're bringing value to us.
Well, that's exciting. It'll be interesting to see how you shake out for this year, as it is for everybody right now. Some interesting times again.
Yeah.
Thank you, world. I think this has been a great conversation, Ray. I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your journey and your insights with us today here. That's a wrap.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.